Hello everyone, this is Charlie from the Bloomingdale Public Library and welcome to Intermediate Word Processing using Microsoft Word. In case you were looking for the beginners class, we decided not to include it on our YouTube channel because if you're able to use the internet and find our YouTube channel and play this video, odds are the beginners class would be past your skills. Nonetheless, we'll cover what skills we did do during the beginning class, so that way you will be able to tell whether or not you'll be comfortable going forward. So here's what we're going to cover. Again, a brief overview of what we did in the beginner class. We'll move on to shortcuts, layout options, creating bullet lists and outlines, inserting and arranging images, inserting footers, headers, and page numbers, and then we'll finish off with proofing for spelling and grammar. This is by no means a comprehensive list of all the intermediate skills necessary to learn in Microsoft Word, but it's a pretty good start. So we're going to start with the review. We learned how to open and close a Word document. We learned about using carriage returns to start a new line, using the Tab key to do indentation, and using the caps lock and the shift keys to do capitalization. We learned to move the cursor using the mouse and the arrow keys. We learned to insert text and how to delete text using the delete key and the backspace key. We went over the basics of highlighting and then using highlighted text for copying, cutting, and pasting. We discussed text alignment and spacing. That's with regards to the space between lines and paragraphs. We learned about using the undo and redo commands. And then we finished off with saving and printing. So again, if any of this doesn't ring a bell or are skills you're not comfortable with using, I'd recommend finding a tutorial that starts at the beginning before moving on forward with this class. Shortcuts are a way of using the keyboard to perform functions rather than navigating the ribbon. The ribbon is what we call all of this up at the top here. So knowing shortcuts can help you save time or maybe realize an accidental key press. It's also useful if you wanted to get rid of the ribbon in the user interface and get a little more real estate. To show you what I mean, up at the upper right, next to the minimize icon, you see it says Ribbon Display Options. And here is where you can auto hide the ribbon, and you have that much more screen to work with. And again, if you know the shortcuts, you don't usually need the ribbon anyway. Also, if you find your ribbon has disappeared and it's not something that you had done intentionally, now you know what you probably did by accident. And if you go back to the top, click Ribbon Display Options, Show Tabs and Commands, you'll get everything back. With the ribbon up, if you wanted to know what the shortcut for a certain command is, all you need to do is use your mouse and you can roll over the individual commands and you'll see many of these where it says underline, and then next to underline it says Control+U. That would be the shortcut. For strike through, you'll notice that there's nothing in parentheses next to it. That's because there's no default shortcut for strike through. So some commands will have shortcuts, some of them won't. If you wanted, you can go to File, Options, Customize Ribbon, and then at the bottom here, Keyboard Shortcuts, Customize. You can add or change any shortcuts to whatever commands are on the ribbon. I generally don't recommend doing that. Something else you can do, particularly helpful if you don't have the ribbon showing, but even if you do, if you hit F10, you'll notice a whole bunch of numbers and letters appear all over the ribbon. So let's say for the Insert tab, you notice that there's an N. I'll hit N, and that'll bring up the Insert tab. And you'll notice under Table, there's a T. I can hit T. And then you'll notice further in this menu, I can hit I to insert table. I'll go ahead and do that. Hit OK. And that's how to perform a command without using a keyboard, mouse, or even the shortcuts. It's just single key, kind of on the fly shortcuts that again will help you get around using the ribbon if you are faster that way, if you have shaky hands and are uncomfortable with the mouse, or maybe you are using a device that doesn't have a mouse. Again, it's just a nice short way of navigating the commands a little more quickly. Some of the more common shortcuts, and these are common to a lot of other programs. So if you are using OpenOffice or LibreOffice, which are two open source, free to use word processors, I'll go ahead and show you. I'm going to type some text here. I'm going to highlight this. Control X is the shortcut to cut. Control V is the shortcut to paste. I'm going to highlight this again. Control C is the shortcut to copy. So again, you've got Control X, Control C, and Control V all right next to each other for cut, copy, and paste, respectively. Two other shortcuts that are popular are undo and redo. So if I wanted to undo what I just did, I could hit Control Z. If I wanted to redo what I just undid, it's Control Y. So Control Z, Control Y to undo and redo. And a few other shortcuts are Control S to save, Control P to print, and F7 is to bring up the spell check. The next topic I want to discuss is general page layout. So if we go to the Layout tab, we'll see what that all includes. We've got the margins, orientation, page size, columns, and a few more. Just so we can see what's going on, I'm going to throw some text onto the page here. Disregard my spelling. And we'll do some more. Oops. All right, there we go. So the first guy right here is margins. The margins are the white space that frames the content on the page. By default, it's 1 inch on all sides, which I personally think is excessive. If we look at our options here, you can see we've got a few of them. These are all default options here, narrow, moderate, wide, but you can also select your own by going to custom margins at the bottom. I personally prefer using narrow margins. I think it still looks neat with the spacing on the sides. Plus, it tends to use a lot less paper when you start printing things out. That's another helpful hint. If you're trying to keep things to a certain page count, you can adjust the margins to make them bigger or smaller to get an extra page or two or cut off an extra page or two. Just to show you what the custom margins option looks like, here we go. So you can see the narrow margins by default are just a 1/2 inch. If you want to make them something smaller, you can put in something like 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. And when you customize, you can make them as uneven as you like. Gutters just describe the place where the staples go in your page, what side and how far out they go. So I'm going to hit OK. And this is an error that you'll see often if you set the margins too small. It'll tell you that you might have issues printing, that you're putting text outside of the printable area. You can choose to ignore that if you like, and may or may not be missing text when it's time to print. If you're not printing out your document, then it's probably nothing you need to worry about. But if you wanted to fix it, all you got to do is hit Fix, and you can see it defaults to 1/4 inch on all sides. And that might change depending on your default printers. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of that. And we'll look at the next option here, which is orientation. I think most people know what the page orientation means, but just to demonstrate, when you click on that, you can choose portrait or landscape. If I set it to landscape, you see everything goes wide. Set it back to portrait, it goes back to narrow. If you wanted to see what things look like at the bottom of the page, over in the lower right corner is where you can zoom out or zoom in. So if you zoom out, you'll have a better look at what your page looks like. I'm going to zoom back to 100% here. The next guy over is page size. So if you were printing on a smaller than usual page size, or if you were printing on envelopes, you want to get the exact dimensions of the paper that you're going to be printing to and select it from either the list that's already there, or you can choose more paper sizes and put in a custom width and height right there. I'm going to cancel out of that. Indentation, as you can see, it changes how far things are indented from the sides without regards to using the tab key or any other spacing. Something to be aware of is that the indentation and spacing here is in the paragraph section, which means where the first bunch of options we looked at will adjust everything on the page. Everything in the paragraph section will only affect what's in a paragraph. So every time you hit return, it will create a new paragraph, and the options in the paragraph section can change from paragraph to paragraph. So if things are changing in one paragraph and not another, or you're confused why you're having trouble editing the spacing in one paragraph versus another, go from paragraph to paragraph, moving the cursor around, and see what options change in the paragraph section. The next topic we're going to cover is bullet lists. To start a bullet list, you go to the Home tab, and under the paragraph section, you'll see 3 dots with 3 lines. When you roll over it, it'll say bullets. Go ahead and click on that, and you'll see a bullet. From here, simply start typing, hit enter to go to the next item. And that is a basic bullet list. If you wanted to go to a second level, just start a new line and hit tab, and that will give you a new bullet with a tabbed indentation. And when you hit enter at the second level, it will keep you at that second level. And again, on a new line, hit tab, and you can go in a third level. I don't believe there's any limit to how many levels in you can go. Probably keep going until you get to the end of the page. As you see, I keep hitting tab. It stops me right here. And that's where it stops me. If you find that you've tabbed yourself too far in and you want to go out, or if you're finished at a particular level and you wanted to go up a level, what you do is you hold down the shift key and hit tab, and that will back you out 1 level each time you tap it. And again, when you start a new line, it'll keep you at that level. Start a new line, hit tab. Again, you can go to that second level a second time. Or you can jump a level down to the third level from the first. Just like that. If you're all done with your bullet list, start a new line, and you go back up to the bullet command. Click on it, and you'll see we're out of the bullet. I'm going to get rid of this stray bullet I created. So if you backspace back into the bullet list, you'll see it will continue where you left off. Again, you hit the bullet command and it gets you out. If you like, you can redefine the bullets. That is the little symbol that the little dots represent. So if you click the arrow next to the bullet command, you'll see you have a bullet library where you can choose from many of the other bullets. You can also go to define new bullet at the bottom. From here, you can either choose a symbol to use for your new bullet symbol. There's a pretty good list if you float through it. Just to demonstrate, we'll choose a Greek letter there. It shows you an example of what it'll look like. Hit OK. Oh. You can see if we go to a level in our list, it will change every icon in that level to the redefined bullet. If you want to get very creative, you can go to Define New Bullet List and choose Picture. I'm going to search for an image on the desktop. It's a picture of a cat. Insert. OK. And now you see we have an image. It's impossible to see, but it is a small image of a cat as our new bullet. Again, we can redefine the whole level with cat bullets, and that is the basics of a bullet list. The next topic is outlines, or numbered lists, as I'm going to refer to it from here on. A numbered list is similar to a bullet list, except the items on the list are preceded by an automatically incremented number or letter, depending on the level and how you format it. To create a numbered list, it's just like a bullet list, and it's right next to the bullet list command. So in the Home tab, in the paragraph section, you've got the 3 dots and the 3 lines. That is our bullet list. Next to that, where we have the 1, 2, 3, and 3 lines again, is the numbered list. So if you go ahead and click on that icon, you'll see we get a number 1. I'll go ahead and put in an item name there, and I'm going to hit enter to start the next item. As you can see, it automatically increments to a number 2. Hit enter, again, next item. Hit enter, you get the point. If I hit tab, we'll go in 1 level. And you can see by default it goes from numbers to lowercase letters. Hit enter. Again, it keeps us at the level and it increments appropriately. If I hit tab again, we go in another level, and you see this time it's Roman numerals by default. If I go in to a 4th level, it cycles back to numbers. Just like before, you can use Shift Tab to back up a level. And if you wanted to end the list, click on the numbering command again, and you're back to typing normally. If you click on the small arrow next to the numbering command, you'll see they have a whole list here of different ways to create your counter. So you've got numbers with a period, numbers with parentheses, or you can define your own, which I'm not going to get into here. So if I choose ABC, now our level starts with a capital letter. So again, we'll, because I'm unoriginal, go back to the same scheme as before. But you see it still knows to continue with the capital letters. If I go in another level this time, it goes back to what it defaults as, but if you wanted to change it, you can change the second level as well, again by hitting the down arrow and choosing whatever you like. If I go right to Roman numerals, there you go. Just like that. And that's all there is to a numbered list or outlines. The next command is one you probably won't use very often, but it goes with bullet lists and numbered lists, and you might wonder what it is. And that is the multi-level list command. So up at the top in the Home tab in the Paragraph section, we've got the bullet list, the numbering list, and the next to that is the multi-level list. And what that'll let us do is define the levels up to 9 levels deep of a list. And that list can be bullets, numbering, or both. Just to show you what I mean, when you click on the multi-level list command, it's going to force you to choose a scheme right off the bat. So you can choose one from the ones that are listed, or if you go down to define new multi-level list, you'll see there's one again that's already 9 levels deep. It starts off with parentheses, goes to double parentheses, and then period, and it cycles through like it did with the numbering, where it starts with 1, then it starts at lower level A, and then it goes to Roman numeral 1. So let's say we wanted our first level not to be a numbered list, but a bullet. We wanted to start with bullets. We go down from the number style for this level, select bullet. Let's say we wanted our second level to number normally. 1, 2, 3. Let's say we want our third level to do first, second, third. That's kind of interesting. And I'll hit OK. So now our first level starts with the bullet. Our second level goes to numbering. And then our third level goes to spelled out places in the list. So you can actually do this in the middle of a normal numbered or bullet list, but the multi-level list will let you change it on the fly. And at the same time, with our list already created, we can go back. You can see it's already listed as our current list. Define new multi-level list. We'll go back to our first level. Say we don't want to do bullet anymore. We want to do something interesting like our small cat picture. Hit OK. And that's how you would change it on the fly. So again, it's a way of predefining a list with bullets or numbers or pictures instead of doing it on the fly as we would normally. Our next topic is a fun one, and that's putting pictures into our document. To do that, there's a couple things we can actually do. We'll start off with the Insert tab. If you click on the Insert tab, we've got two options. We've got Pictures and Online Pictures. We'll start with Pictures. That's if your image is stored on the computer itself. So I'll click Pictures. We would navigate to where our pictures are stored. I put mine on the desktop. It's this guy named Dog here. And then click Insert. And that is how we put an image into our document from the computer. I'm going to undo that. And we're going to go the other route now. I'm going to click Insert, Online Pictures. And when you do that, you're basically doing a search on the internet. So I'm going to go ahead and search for cars. And that will do a Bing search for cars. You know this little guy here that says Creative Commons Only? If that's selected, it will show you cars that have an open license versus something that someone will sue you over if you try to make money off. So I'm going to go ahead, and it looks like, I thought it was a checkbox, but as long as it's highlighted, I think we're good. I'm going to select the first car here, and then at the lower right it says insert. Go ahead and click insert, and there you go. We have a picture from the internet in our document. There's two more things we can do. I'm going to go ahead and click undo again. And that's if we want to pull an image from the website that we're already on into the document. So I'm going to drag the document all the way to the right. What that'll do is cut the document in half on the screen. And we have our website open here. I'm going to right click, copy image, and click back on our document, right click, and paste. And as you see, we've got a copy of our slide in our document from copying and pasting from a web page. I'm going to undo that. And there's one more thing you can do. I'm going to go ahead and minimize the web page. And you'll see I have our image of the dog here on the desktop. This is the same image that I pulled from the first time when I went to insert pictures. So with the dog picture on the desktop, I can just click and drag it onto the document. And that's the same as if you were browsing through files in the folder. Again, I'm going to go to desktop. Here's our picture of the dog. Drag it in. And there you go. So that's 4 different ways to insert images into your document. You can try clicking and dragging images from the internet onto your document, but I found usually that gives you a copy of the link instead of the image itself instead. So now that we have the image in our document, we can play around with it a little bit. First thing we need to do is make sure the picture is selected. So you click on the image itself, and you'll see once you do, you've got nodes around the outside. You have a rotating arrow on the top. You have an image with an upside down U in the upper right corner. We also had a tab appear, the Picture Tools Formatting tab, that we'll have a look in just a second. So if we wanted to change the size of the image, we could click and drag on one of the nodes from the sides or from the top and the bottom. But as you can see, if we drag on the nodes from the sides or the bottom or the top, what happens is it distorts the image. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that. Instead, I'm going to click on one of the corner nodes. The corner nodes will change the height and width at the same time, maintaining the ratio of the picture, which in most cases is what you want to do. The rotating arrow at the top of the image is to rotate. In the case with our car, there's probably not really a good reason to do that, but just to demonstrate, you click and drag one way or the other. That's what we get. Again, probably not a good example for rotating, but there you go. I'm going to leave it there for just a sec to look at our next option, and that's the text wrapping. When you click on it, you've got a whole bunch of other options available to you. The first one is called square. It basically puts a square around our image. You can see it ignores the angling and basically creates a square around the irregular rotation that we have going on. The next one says tight. You can see what that does. It tightens the text to as close as it can around the frame of the image, and it ignores the square. The next one, you see it's called through. If our shape was a little more irregular, it would put text inside of the shape. The next one, top and bottom. As you can see, that will put the text on the top and the bottom of the image, and it leaves the sides completely free. And the last two, you see the first will put the text on top of it. The second one will put the text behind it. Usually you don't want to do that because you can't read the document otherwise, but I could see why you might want to put the image in the background. So we'll go ahead, and with the image still selected, I'm going to click on Format. And this is our Picture Tools Formatting tab. And we have a whole bunch of options, but I'm only going to look at a few. The first one is Remove Background. And what that will do is try to determine the subject of the image and remove the background from it. In this case, it'll show you what the subject is by putting everything else in purple. It does a pretty good job, except for some of the windows will show through, but in this case I don't think it'll affect us. I'll click on Keep Changes, and there you go. Oh, in this case you can still see the text hiding behind there. I'm going to change our wrapping to tight. That's usually what I prefer. The other option I really wanted to look at was the cropping tool. So when I click crop, you can see we get these dashed lines, and as I click and drag on those dashed lines, you can see it grays out the image that's going to be excluded, and whatever's still colored will be kept. So if I click and release, now everything that's gray will be excluded from the image. What you can do, you can see I have a moving crosshair when I'm over the image in the cropped area. If I click and drag, I can move the image to a better place within the crop. So once you have the crop the way you like, you click on the crop image again, and as you can see, it got rid of all the extras. So you might want to do that if you had a picture of several people and you wanted to cut out everyone that wasn't a part of the subject of the document. If there was 3 cars and you were only talking about one of them in your document, you might want to cut the other couple out. Just to briefly discuss the rest, we've got color correction where you can change the colors. You got the color, which again you can make it more red, yellow, green, or blue. You can add a frame with this selection in the middle, and you can add effects as well. So it lends itself to practice, but that is what we can do. Our next topic isn't quite as exciting as images, but it's still a nice and easy way to touch up your document, and that is adding a header, footer, or page number to the top or bottom of your pages. To do that, you go to the Insert tab, and in the header and footer section, we've got headers, footers, and page numbers. And page numbers are actually a special kind of header or footer. I would only put a header or a page number at the top, or a footer and page number at the bottom. I wouldn't try to combine them. Though you can put content and a page number in a footer or a header, I simply wouldn't recommend it until you're comfortable playing around with the mechanics of it. So we'll start off with adding a page number. What you would do is you'd click on page number, and you see you've got a whole list of options here. We can put them at the top, bottom, or even in the page margins. But I usually put mine in the bottom right. So I'm going to roll over the bottom of page. Plain number 3 puts the number in the lower right, and click on it. And you see right away it grays out all the text, and it gives us a little tag here that says footer, and then we see a bunch of dashes. At the top we see header with a bunch of dashes. It lets you edit the headers and footers at the same time. It also created a new tab up at the top, the Header and Footer Tools Design tab. We'll talk a little bit about some of those in just a sec. So scrolling up and down through our document, you can see in the lower right corner we've got a 2, we've got a 1, and went up to 3 and 4. So it counts the pages automatically for you, which is nice. As far as adjusting the style goes, if you highlight the 1 there, and go to the Home tab, you can adjust the style. So if you wanted something fancy, Bernard MT condensed looks interesting, you can do that. You can increase the size a little bit if you like. You can do that. We can do any of the other styling that's available normally to us. If you really wanted to highlight it or color it. Just to show what you can do. When you're done stylizing your page number, what you need to do is go back to the Design tab, close Header and Footer, and now we're all set. As you can see, we've got our 3, 2, 1 in the lower right corner, and it's still got our funny styling with it. So we're going to go back to the Insert tab. Now we'll look at adding a header. So when I roll over header, click on that. We've got a left aligned, a left, center, and right aligned, and then a few other options. Again, I wouldn't get too fancy until you're comfortable with all of the options available. But I'm going to go ahead and click on this 3 columns option here. So what you can do here is the text on the left is left justified. The text in the middle is middle justified. The text on the right is right justified. So you can put your title, your chapter number, your name, whatever in all 3 spots. Or if you wanted to only use 1 or 2, you can just completely delete the text on one side. So it's up to you, but again, I wouldn't get too fancy with it. At the same time, just like we did before, we can highlight the text, go to the Home tab, and our stylizing options are still available to us. So we'll set to Arial Black, set it to 20, and then again, when we're done, we go to the Design tab, close header and footer. A lot of people get stuck in the headers or the footers because they don't realize they need to go back to that Design tab and close it. So if you wanted to do any editing, we go to Insert, Header, Edit Header. If you do add header again, it's going to overwrite what you had before. If you wanted to adjust the sizes of the headers or footers, you can do that with these adjustments right here. The last topic I want to discuss for this class is the spelling and grammar check. You'll notice as you type, you'll get red and blue squiggly lines, and those are spelling checks for the red squiggly lines and grammar checks for the blue squiggly lines. You can turn those off if you like in the preferences, but if you were going to print this out, the red and the blue squiggly lines wouldn't print. It's just for your help as you type. You'll also notice here in the second line, I have "it is a great dog to be alive," which is both a spelling and a grammatical error, but it doesn't get picked up by Word. That's just a reminder to make sure you reread your document yourself to catch anything that Word might miss. One more thing to be aware of is I'm going to type "I am relieved." I'll start with the letter I. You see I use a lowercase I, but the second I hit space, it gets capitalized. And then I hit am relieved. Again, once I hit the period, watch the I and the E. It gets changed automatically. So for smaller mistakes, Word will be correcting as you go along, and it's usually not an issue, but it's something to be aware of in case you do intend for a different spelling of a word. So, to go ahead and do a grammar and spelling check, you can either hit F7 like we learned at the beginning of the course, or you can click on the Review tab and click Spelling and Grammar. It'll start off wherever the cursor was in the document, continue to the end, and then start back over. You see here we have a couple of options. We can either ignore the mistake, ignore all, which will ignore the mistake for the rest of the document if you made the same mistake over and over again. Or you can add the word to the dictionary. So it would consider Shazam a word for the rest of all time, as if it were a regular word in the dictionary. Some other options at the bottom here are change and change all. If you see an option that you wanted to replace Shazam with, you can choose one of the options. Click change to change that single instance of the word, or change all to change it for the rest of the document. So just to demonstrate, I'm going to add it to the dictionary. And I had Shazam a couple times, and you'll notice from here on out, it considers it spelled correctly. So once I do that, it continues on to the next error. In this case, I have "it is a greenest day to be alive." I missed a period. So that's something that the grammar check is usually pretty good about, is missed periods or no capitalization on the first word of a sentence. Some other mistakes you might see, we'll go ahead and just change it for now. I've got is, was, and if you're wondering why that's a mistake, they'll give you an explanation beneath your option to change, and that explanation might not be good for you. You might disagree with what they think is a mistake, in which case you'll know to leave it. In any case, it's nice that they explain what they think the problem is. So in this case, they wanted to change is, was to is. I'll make that change. Here, I repeated a phrase. And in that case, they consider it to be a grammatical error. It is a great day to be alive and be alive and be alive. And again, you can decide what's right and then make the change that you want. Again, I'm just hitting change to go on. Here, I have too many E's in the word great, but they don't offer the word great. They offer the word greenest instead. In this case, when they don't give you a good option to switch to, and you don't want to ignore it, you have to put the cursor in the document itself and make the change. And when you're ready, you hit resume. So in the case of a repeated word, again, it can be a grammatical error or a spelling error. In this case, they gave me a spelling error for a repeated it. And there's really no way to know what the mistakes are and how they describe it. You just have to kind of get used to the idiosyncrasies of the spell and grammar check. What's right, what's wrong, what it overlooks, what it mislabels. And that's only way you can get used to that is through practice. So, just going through it. You'll notice with the grammar, they don't always give you an option to ignore all or change all. But that is the basics of spell and grammar check. So those were all the topics we were planning on covering for this class. Next week, there'll be another class. We're going to focus on tables, word art, templates, that kind of thing. I know in the description it mentioned something about mail merging, but one of my coworkers has already covered that in a previous YouTube video, so you can find that there already. If you were looking to learn more, we have plenty of books in the library. You can come on in, or you can go onto our website and learn online. You go to mybpl.org, click on Learn, Online Courses, and I recommend lynda.com for all things technical. So if you click on lynda.com, it'll take you to a screen like this. You put in your library card number, you put in your PIN, which should be the last 4 digits of your phone number. And this is only for Bloomingdale residents. So if you're not from our library, this won't work for you. You'll have to go through your own library. So once you log in, you'll go to a screen like this, where you can go ahead and type in whatever kind of skills you're looking to learn. If you wanted to learn about Word, you see several things come up. We've got Word and InDesign, Word 2019 Essential Training. We're actually learning with Word 2016 right now, so if we type that in, we've got a couple of things that come up. You go ahead and click on Word 2016 Essential Training, and what you do is you get a course and you have videos that all range between like 2 and 10 minutes. So you can go at your own pace, you can pick the topics you want to learn. It's absolutely fantastic. I use it for my own personal learning. I use it to help structure classes. It's a fantastic resource, and I highly encourage you that you take advantage of it. And with that, that's all I have. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next week.